Today, we're heading all the way out to Washington, D.C., where Amy Edmonds is standing by, hanging on the phone. So this obviously was just a vacation on the taxpayer's dime, right, Amy?
Not even close,
Okay,
Glenn.
good. Okay. So what are you doing in
Not
Washington,
even
D.C.?
close. Washington, D.C., here to have a meeting with some of the policy folks for Senator Mike Enzi and Senator John Barrasso and Representative Cynthia Lummis, talking about a couple of key pieces of education policy that are coming up shortly.
Okay, such as, and does a lot of this just have to do with education in general? Or all of
This
it?
has to do with education, yeah.
Okay.
So what we're seeing on both chambers is the push to, now the Republicans have pushed to try to reauthorize No Child Left Behind again with different themes on the same variation about reauthorization. So we have H.R. 5, which is the Student Success Act in the House. That was a bill that was actually pulled about a week ago thanks to a huge national grassroots push that caused the House leadership, Boehner and the rest, to fail to come up with the votes. People were writing, calling in, texting, Twitter. I mean, they were using everything they could to talk about some really key concerns inside that bill. We also have Lamar Alexander's bill, Every Child College and Career Ready Act. Don't you love these titles, Glenn? Which is in the U.S. Senate. It's actually been pulled and waiting to come back, get marked up, and go to committee and get marked up. So we are here to talk about those pieces of legislation.
Okay, now I have a theory that whenever they write a piece of legislation, the title of the legislation is actually the opposite of what it does.
You know, you could be right.
Yeah.
You could be right, because the Student Success Act and Every Child College and Career Ready might be a little less about children being successful in college and career ready and a lot more about federal intrusion.
Okay, so do you find, first off, let's just talk about from your state, the Wyoming legislative body there. I mean, we only have one representative, and some people have argued that that's too many for a state population-wise our size, but okay. Are they actually receptive to what you're saying? Do they understand what you're talking about? Because, I mean, apparently our governor doesn't in some cases.
You know, there was a lot of listening going on, so it's been a really good dialogue of just talking back and forth. Certainly, when you come here, Glenn, what you realize very quickly is that, you know, as folks who are passionate about parental rights and local control and all these other issues, we're fighting at the state level, coming here thinking about how can we free the state up, how can we get the federal government out of the way. They're sitting there thinking, how can we stop massive Democrat amendments from being put on this bill? How can we fight nationally? How, you know, what's going to happen? What is the president going to do with this bill? So it's interesting to come here and get a complete change in scenery. The important thing, though, is really for our senators to hear from all of us that there are concerns and what those concerns are.
Okay, so what are their concerns there in Washington, D.C.? I mean, I understand what you and I talk about on a regular basis, but a lot of times, you know, for instance, Senator Enzi or Barrasso will have a completely different perspective that you and I haven't even heard of, but I think they've been in Washington too long. Am I being cynical?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the Beltway has a whole different view of the world than the rest of us who actually are out in the states living it. The reality of these two bills is simply that, you know, now is the moment and the time for Congress to do something, I think, really monumental. Reauthorizing No Child Left Behind, and basically what is sort of No Child Left Behind Part 2, is not what they should be doing. This is the moment for them to really return control, true control, back to the states. If the Republicans want to be Republicans, and that's what they need to do. These two bills just don't get that done. These two bills are not strong enough, and dare I say, they're simply not conservative enough. We would like to see something a lot more conservative that truly gives control back. So ideas like there was an amendment on H.R. 5 that was introduced before the bill got pulled, which is brought by Representative Walker from North Carolina, and it's basically the A-Plus Act, another piece of legislation that's sort of been hanging out for a couple of years and nobody took a hold of it. It's the idea that the state would actually receive its federal funds back in a block grant with absolutely no strings attached. It would remove almost all of the No Child Left Behind strings, and that's really what we want. We want states to be able to just get out of No Child Left Behind. You know, I've been on before so many times, Glenn, and talked about the whole idea behind No Child Left Behind with accountability at the federal government level. Simply doesn't work. It isn't going to work. So why in the world would we reauthorize it with those same failed principles in it? We need to step away, and this is the moment for Congress to return real control back to parents and to the state.
See, what got me, there was a smirk on my face. I wish you could see me right now. As soon as you said getting our federal money back, which is the proper way to say because it was ours in the first place, with no strings attached. Right away, there was a smirk on my face. The whole point of taking our money from us and then giving us it back to us in little pieces, not the full amount, and we're supposed to thank them for it, is control.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And that's what we're trying to say. And it's the reason that I came. It's also the reason that, I came with some mothers from different parts of the state who are here with me. And you're more than welcome to talk to them as well, Glenn. It's about control, and it's about really, who should have the control? Who is going to hold them accountable? Who's the best person to hold the public education system accountable? And I think it's parents. Right. So it's great to be here, and it's great to be here with some of these wonderful ladies who've said just that to our senators.
Okay, now I want to get to some of these ladies, but personal note, just between you and me, last time I was in Washington, D.C., there's a Holiday Inn that's just a short walk from the Capitol, right? And I was able to find the place at night, and I was tired, and I wasn't paying attention. I just pulled in. And when I left, across the street, it's a very thin street from this Holiday Inn. Right across the street is the Department of Education. So I walked out the door and just about threw up my breakfast right there. But it was not the kind of building that I expected to see either. But anyway, there was the Department of Education right across the street. And they had out in front at the time, since this was some years ago, they had a No Child Left Behind doorway built that didn't even match the building. They just had attached something to the front of the Department of Education that said No Child Left Behind. And it was supposed to be really colorful and fun. And I, again, almost lost my breakfast. Who do you have with you?
I have two moms. So I have Christy Hooley. We've got about 5 moms here, but two of them that are here right now. Christy Hooley and Cindy McKee. Christy is, of course, from Rock Springs, and Cindy McKee is from the Savory Bags area.
Okay, so let's start with Christy. What did she come there for?
I'm going to hand her. I'm going to hand this to her. Okay.
Sounds good.
Hi, Glenn.
Hello, Christy. So you went all the way to Washington, D.C., and I just got, first question is, how much aspirin and how much Pepto-Bismol does it take to walk around Washington, D.C.?
Oh, Glenn, I tell you what, it's a whole new world down here. It sure puts things into perspective from where I'm at in Wyoming. Absolutely.
Okay. Why specifically did you show up?
I decided to come because I felt that the work that we've been doing on the state level to educate parents and to educate our legislators, what parents want is, of course, important. But as we were following these national bills, we just saw that, wait a minute, the federal government is now going to get in our way, and we're going to have to start to advocate on a national level. And we wanted to speak with our representatives, but gosh darn it, we couldn't get them in Cheyenne. So we decided to hightail it to D.C. and just get in their face and tell them what's going on.
Okay. Now, there a lot of times when you sit and talk to your representatives, like your senators, for example, they sit there very politely and nod. I mean, these people are professional politicians. They're trained. And you will certainly walk away feeling like you made some headway with them. So realistically speaking, do you think you made some headway with them?
Initially, we were feeling a little pushback, I think.
Okay.
But the more we dialogued and the more they realized that we knew what we were talking about and that we really, truly were involved, we started to have some dialogue. And so I did come away feeling like, I think we opened the door. I think that we, put a face to our name and made a point that we are willing to come here to advocate for the children in our state.
Were you able to hand them anything that maybe they should be working on, or did you just come to sit and talk?
Oh, no, yes. We actually did hand them a document that we spent some time putting together. We outlined, our concerns, of course, and what we would like to see, and backed it up with research and language that we saw in the bills that were concerning to us and where we saw it going down the road. And so we definitely, we were told that they would look at it. The staffers were actually flipping through it while we were there. So I feel like we did get our foot in the door. Okay.
So what do you hope to get out of your visit? I mean, what do you hope the end result's going to be here?
I really hope that I know that we've put together a plan, as we've been discussing, that we want them to know that we know how to strategize and we know what the pulse is of parents and what they're feeling. So we can tell them what's truly happening in Wyoming and where parents are at, and we want them to know that they can come to us. when they really want to get a feel for what we want in Wyoming.
Okay. Who else did you bring with you?
We've got Cindy McKee here, and she's also a former educator and a mother, and I'll hand the phone over to her.
All right. Sounds good. All right. So Cindy's the next one up on the line.
Hello, Glenn.
Hello, Cindy. Where do you hail from in the state of Wyoming?
I hail from the small town of Savory, spitting distance from Colorado.
Okay. See, it's a small town in Wyoming if I have no idea what the name of the town is whatsoever. Because, okay, so from the small town of Savory, you came as an educator? I mean, are you still an educator now?
Well, I'm a home educator.
Okay.
I'm a former public school teacher. I'm partner in a ranch with my husband now, cattle ranching, and I volunteered at my kids' school before I made the big decision to homeschool.
Okay. Have you been active in Cheyenne in the legislative body there?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
So what message did you wanted to bring to your representatives in Washington, D.C.? What did you have to say to them?
Well, I'll tell you what, our group, all of us really have agreed that there's four main themes that we wanted to talk to them about. The first one is local control. Right. We really believed that these bills that were being proposed pretended or were messaged as returning local control, restoring freedom, and that we wanted to point out to our senators that we recognize multiple parts of these bills that do the exact opposite, and we wanted to point that out and help them understand where Wyomingites were coming from on that area. We also are very concerned, obviously, about parental rights. We saw two parental rights bills come to our own legislature in Wyoming. One got a fair hearing in the House and was very strongly supported, and then died for lack of hearing in the Senate. And the other one never even got its first hearing. It was pocket vetoed. So parents in Wyoming are very anxious about this, very, very concerned. A third thing we're very concerned about is data privacy. And at this point, that's a national conversation because the FERPA laws have been weakened so much that we now, our own legislators keep saying, well, as long as it follows FERPA, we're good. And we're trying to help people understand, but FERPA has now been hamstrung. It does us no good. And, of course, the fourth thing we're very concerned about now is the issue of private school integrity, because there's a big question about portability in these big national bills, and questions that the aides and the folks we spoke with really couldn't quite answer yet was, will federal mandates follow children if they bring their backpack funding into private schools? Because if they do that, now we've basically homogenized and made private schools into de facto public schools. Right. So that's a huge concern. We want to maintain private school integrity. So those were the four main messages that we gave our senators.
So am I right? Are you homeschooling? Is that what you're doing?
Yes, sir, I am now.
Okay. My sister homeschooled. By the way, I did Uncle Glenn's science class, so that was always kind of fun to do. So my sister, as a homeschooler, I'm a strong supporter of it. But one of my worries is, there are people there in Washington, D.C. that just can't handle the fact that you're homeschooling, that they don't have any control over you. So one way or another, they're going to find a way to get their claws into homeschool, whether it's testing or something. Sooner or later, they're going to find their way into your home. Do you worry about that?
I absolutely do. And you know what, that's the reason I still do this. A lot of folks, well, I don't want to say a lot of folks, but a few folks have said to me, Cindy, why are you fighting this centralization of education so much? I mean, you're homeschooling now, so you're good, you're great. And I absolutely see that as a threat. I believe that all schooling freedoms, choices are under threat right now because there's forces out there that truly do feel threatened by the idea that there are alternatives. The public school entities. I mean, remember, I'm a former public school teacher, so I've been part of this, and I can speak to it. It's tough, I think, for public schools sometimes to have to deal with the fact that there's other alternatives out there that are, quite frankly, outperforming them, and have to explain why that's happening. And there's amazing teachers out there who are regularly limited by the forces of this monstrous bureaucracy that they have to deal with. And when things are done on a smaller, tighter level, like in a private school, a homeschool, you have so much more freedom and flexibility to adjust to kids. This is why they do so well in these environments.
But there's folks out there that's just very threatening. And so the way they hope to intrude on what I'm doing, on what folks who run small private schools are doing, is to impose these kinds of testing requirements and requirements. In some states, people have been challenged on their homeschool curriculum. Oh, it's not following, for example, the Common Core. And then they've pushed back, because most of the time that's not actually legal for superintendents or school districts to require that. And so, yeah, I absolutely feel that threat, and that's part of the reason I'm in this fight. Also for our friends who don't have the option to homeschool, I thank God I can. But not everybody has that choice, and I'm fighting for them too. They shouldn't have to be stuck with something that's being imposed.
Amy, when I look at it and I think of all of Washington, D.C., and we have 3 representatives, which you hope are receptive to what you have to say, what can they do in the mess that you see there in D.C.?
Well, I think the one most important part of it is that Senator Mike Enzi is actually on the Education Committee in the Senate. So that's one of the reasons that we really wanted to have a conversation with his staffers and his policy folks, is it's important to talk to him, because that is a position of authority to be on the Senate Education Committee.
Okay. Well, that's a good start anyway. Good. And that was a good answer to the question over there. So what about just local control in general? Because I don't see the people, even with Common Core. We were told Common Core originally was supposed to be all about local control, but of course once D.C. gets their claws into it, and the bureaucracy does as well, can you see from there how we can release local control again?
Well, like I said, I think it starts by having Congress bring forward a bill that's certainly a lot more light, and certainly not reauthorizing No Child Left Behind. What we need more than anything is for the federal government to get out of our way and to just get out of the education business entirely.
Right.
And that's part of what we're talking to them about, is, listen, what we really don't want to see is Republicans saying that they have a conservative bill that's 600 pages. It does not take 600 pages to get out of the way.
Right. It takes one sentence.
So, exactly. We need them to, that's exactly right. So what we want is, let's give our money back to us in a block grant. Leave us alone. Get out of the way. No more of this obsession of tying standards to assessment and then accountability and coming in and penalizing states and holding our money over our heads and not giving it back to us unless we jump through whatever hoops in whatever order they would like us to do so. We want all of that to go away.
Amy, thanks for calling in from D.C. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Glenn.
All right, bye.